So the respiratory system is based around a process called respiration. Now, remember that respiration is gas exchange. This is going to be the movement of oxygen into our cells. We need oxygen in our cells so that we can do aerobic respiration. Now, remember that aerobic respiration is going to be the process by which we generate ATP. So we generate cellular energy through using oxygen. Now, that whole process is going to generate CO2. We generate the CO2 from our food molecules. So all of the carbons in our food will get expelled as CO2. So that means that we are generating CO2 from this process and we're using oxygen to do it. So that means we need to get oxygen to our tissues, and we now need to figure out a way of getting CO2 out. So the respiratory system is just simply going to be the conveyance of that oxygen and that CO2. It's giving us passageways and giving us a site for that gas exchange to occur. Now, because we are doing this using atmospheric air, we are actually going to hijack some of these bits and pieces and utilize that air to do other things as well. We, of course, know that our sense of smell is going to come from the air, right? So we know that one of the functions of the respiratory system is also going to be conveying molecules from the air to us so that we can smell it, okay? So let's go ahead and start here with where the air comes in. So we breathe in and we route that air up into our nasal cavity. So the nasal cavity is part of what we would call the upper respiratory tract. The lower respiratory tract is going to be everything from your voice box down. So we're going to have air enter in the nose, which is here in our upper respiratory tract. We're going to breathe that air in, and it's going to get routed over these three ridges. Now, these three ridges do a couple things. Anytime you see ridges, once again, we're always thinking in terms of surface area. So here we have a bunch of surface area. Well, why do we need surface area? Well, a little bit of the surface area, so this superior-most nasal concha, is going to be here to get us a better sense of smell. We can capture more air molecules or odorant molecules from the air and trap it on the top surface of that. Hopefully we have a good chance of smelling those. But also by routing air over these ridges, we do something very similar to when you see air coming over an airplane wing. When air comes out over that airplane wing, it's going to come over and it's going to tumble and it's going to spin, okay? To the point where sometimes you'll actually see these nasal conchae called nasal turbinates. They also have this kind of twisty view depending on the section. So this is a sagittal section, so we can't see it as well. But if you did a coronal section, you'd see that they're kind of curly cute a little bit. What that does is that gets the air spinning as it comes in our nose. By spinning when it comes in our nose, that's able to pull a bunch of the moisture out of the mucus in this nasal cavity, which means we can now humidify that air so when it's on its way in. That way it doesn't dry out all of the other tissues and stuff on the way down to our throat. The moist air makes a lot of sense considering it's going to be surrounded by water here. So we need to make sure that we're getting moisture in there. So that's one of the other functions of our respiratory system, is making sure that respiration can happen easily without drying out all of our tissues. So that means we need to, well, moisten that air coming in. Well, then that air is going to come down here and it's going to enter a region called the pharynx. The pharynx is basically a tube that is going to connect the nasal cavity with the voice box, the larynx down here. So it's going to be the tube that's in between those. It's got three parts: naso, oro, and laryngopharynx, okay? Now, as those air molecules come down here, some of them are going to fall onto the back of the tongue so that we can kind of start to taste them. They're also going to pass our uvula, which is this little bag right here. It kind of hangs down at the back of our throat. So we're able to trap all of these odor molecules. We're also able to trap all of the other things that we might be breathing in: bacteria, viruses, all those kinds of things, and start to trap them in that mucus so they can't get down into our lungs where they could make us incredibly ill. This way we can have an upper respiratory tract infection without necessarily getting a lower respiratory tract infection and getting an infection in our lungs, causing pneumonia and all kinds of fun stuff there. So trapping invaders is another big important aspect of our nasal conchae, as well as all of the other mucous membranes up here in the upper respiratory tract. Then we're going to get our respiratory tract down here, and we're going to see this bit of cartilage at the top of the neck. This is the larynx. So inside the larynx, you're going to see this little fold. That is your vocal folds. These are your vocal cords. So whenever we talk, we are pressurizing air and pushing it over those vocal cords and making them vibrate. So allowing us to utilize air that we are expelling to make sounds, to communicate, is going to be a very important feature of our respiratory system. Without that, communication is not impossible, but it just makes things a little bit more difficult. We also have to be able to protect the lungs. So we have our epiglottis right here, making sure that food particles and things like that don't enter our lungs. Then we're going to follow it down here into our trachea. Okay, so the trachea is going to be this big cartilaginous tube that's going to be carrying air down here towards the lungs. The trachea comes down towards the lungs. It splits into our primary bronchi. Those split into bronchioles. And then finally, we get down to terminal bronchioles, and then finally down to the alveolar ducts and the alveoli. So the alveoli are the actual air sacs. These are the places where we are undergoing gas exchange. If you'll look at these things look tiny, and they've got little tiny membranes. They are simple squamous epithelia that allows us to have diffusion of oxygen and CO2 across those membranes as quickly as we can possibly get it. The thinner the cell, the faster it happens. So by having incredibly thin cells here, we're able to get gases into and out of the blood very, 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 very quickly. So that is just kind of a brief overview of kind of some of the overarching functions that we're trying to get out of our respiratory system.